Hello and welcome. It's the Bucs episode. It's episode 12. Here we are finishing with the last team of NFC South and team that, as you would predict, I have finishing top of this division. I think it's not the shocking prediction that I think Bucs are going to have firm grip on this division for one more year at least. And yeah, I'm not going to shock anyone. I want to thank you for your engagement under Saints videos. It was one of those that really got some of you guys going. Thank you for that. And it's very much appreciated if you like these videos, leave a like, leave a comment, give a subscription, because we have 20 more teams to go in this series, and then there's going to be plenty of content during the season, so you don't want to miss that. And in terms of engagement, thank you very much. In terms of everything was respectful. You might disagree with me, you might not like my opinions, that I am like too low on your pile, but you are doing it respectfully and it's very much appreciated. Thank you for that. Like I said, I want to build a thing or a platform where anyone can disagree with anyone, but if we do it respectfully and we just engage in discussion, share opinions, that would be amazing. So thank you guys. With that being said, let's go and talk about the Bucs. And what is there to say? This is actually probably going to be slightly shorter episode than the usual ones, because there has been not that much change with the Bucs organization. And that's kind of a mark of a well-run organization. Like, there doesn't have to be a lot of turmoil for you to constantly improve, constantly replenish talent, and Bucs are quite good at doing this. The fact that they are in one of the worst divisions in football definitely helps. But as we always do, we will start with draft and how they did. So, I was actually very on side with the Bucs draft, which was not necessarily a team. And I feel like Buca's selection was one of those that had a lot of critiques and had a lot of guys like me that really liked this selection for the Bucs. I would say for critiques, it was mostly set up about the fact that you just paid Chris Godwin and you have Jalen McMillan, so you are kind of already 3 deep with really nice room of wide receivers, with obviously Mike Evans on top of that. And it's like, okay, why do you need another guy, especially when there are roster spots on this team where you are perhaps not so certain about the quality that you have. So why do you spend first round pick on Emeka? And I do understand these worries, but to me, it's dissimilar to what the Bears are, for example, doing. Because in terms of, do I trust Baker Mayfield to handle 4 ball-hungry wide receivers that are great? Yes, I do, and even when he plays Clay Dalton in this, when he plays Buck Irving in this, or Rashad White, I think that Baker Mayfield is a guy that's going to thrive. Give him more weapon and it's not going to get over his head, he's actually going to thrive. So that's one thing. The second thing is, I think Emeka has impeccable character. Like, from what I heard and what I saw, obviously I don't know him personally, there might be, stories I don't know about, so this might age like shit milk, It can happen, but from what I hear and what I saw, I had a nickname for him and it still stays. It's a guy you want your daughter to date, because as far as I know, again, this guy has impeccable character, like really the guy that shows up, works hard. It's like you can trust him. Like, everything is like on that level that you want for a guy that, you would like pretty much in your family. So I have read so many high praises of Emeka, and I feel like this absolutely fits what the Bucs are, because, like I said, it's a very well-run organization that does not deal with too much bullshit. And I think it was, one of the showcase was last year. They have playoffs on the line. They need to win their last game, and they have it in the bag. But Mike Evans doesn't have his 1,000 yards, and I would say he didn't ask for it, but they wanted to do this so much for him because they knew what it means in terms of history, in terms of what he is, what his history is going to be, and they just did it for him. And the emotions that you could see with every single player on that page, it's like, yeah, you absolutely, there is really good culture behind this. that even though there is like 1% potential that this might screw us, we are willing to do this. We are going to fight for this guy to get him the all-time accomplishment in terms of 10th consecutive 1,000-yard receiving season from the start of his career. And overall, like, you don't see too much bullshit. That's where like Liam Coen situation, which we are going to talk about, was like sucks a little bit. It sucks a little bit, but from what I understand is it was much more about like how Liam Coen kind of screwed him up, not the other way around. But and this is going to be a situation that we will talk about when we break down this offense. So I think Emeka definitely fits in character-wise, and the thing is, Mike Evans is 32. Chris Godwin is 29, coming off a serious injury. So, in upcoming years, you need to replenish these guys. Like, Mike has 1 more year on his contract, Chris has kind of 2, but there is like the third year is kind of an option. So you need this future. And again, I don't think it makes your presence any worse. On the other hand, it improves it because I think Baker can handle the load of the wide receivers. Again, I only give it an A because I do understand some concerns. And I do think this was not some like tremendous value. He was kind of in the range where I had him picked. So I get that. And I really feel like if he is the 4th wide receiver to start the year, he's not going to kick around, just being the noisy diva type of wide receiver. He's going to work, put everything that is there on the table, and I think the Bucs fans are going to love him. And then they went and got Benjamin Morrison, which to me was a really nice value, as well as really supplementing the position of need, perhaps like 1 year earlier than you necessarily need Benjamin Morrison, because I think as of right now, he's going to have to fight to get into their starting rotation in terms of the top 3 corners. But, next year, Jamal Dean, 16 million a year. Does his play drop off? You can cut him, save 12 of the 16 millions. Or are you just happy to go 4 or 5 deep with your cornerback room? Because, it's actually a room that, going for 5 deep matters. So I like the selection. To me, it was value. It was really nice pick for, similar to Emeka. Do you need him right now? Maybe not, but he might just be too good for him to keep him on the bench. And at the same time, it's the position where, having depth of talent makes total sense for this team. And, it gives you flexibility going forward. And again, when you hear me talk about this, and you might be where you are inconsistent because you are saying, well, this team, are drafting for a position that they don't need. Well, to me, there is a difference between well-run organization where there is continuity with a head coach, GM, etc., where this is kind of how you operate. You think ahead. Chiefs think ahead. Bills can think ahead, definitely. Ravens can think ahead. Even Packers, where I'm slightly more negative about some of the things. Yeah, even they think really nicely ahead, and they can do so. But when you talk about the team that, coaches are getting fired left and right, they don't have a franchise QB at the realm, the future is uncertain, you anyway, function in that team with shorter visions, then it really doesn't make sense as much to do this quote-unquote luxury picks. And again, I don't think that either Benjamin and Emeka are luxury picks in terms of, they are definitely good enough to make it on the field this year. Then Jacob Parrish, yeah, this is a definition of a luxury pick. This is one where I'm I like the value. Guys or girls, whoever, do you have cats? And if so, do they start to really need your attention whenever you start to talk on a Zoom meeting or Skype meeting, or just doing this? My cat is usually sleeping and everything, and it's minute I start talking, it's here I am, scratch me, little bastards, aren't they? But we love them, don't we? Okay, to Jacob Parrish, I think this was a nice value and luxury pick. Here I was maybe that's not the best usage of the resource, but I absolutely understand this pick, especially when you can kind of make it up with David Walker, who was a steal in my eyes. Like, if he went 65, 70, I would have get it, and get him 121 was definitely nice. And then, like 2-3 days ago, I read he's out for the season. That's actually a big blow, because I think this edge room is solid and has nice potential, but David Walker definitely had a path to play year one, and I would think he would be a contributor that actually they counted on him to be. Now it falls to Elijah Roberts, whose selection I was like kind of whatever. Like, I'm not like super high. In fifth round, it was an okay pick, but unlike David Walker, I would not expect him to have like a really nice immediate impact. And one last pick that I wanted to talk was Tess Johnson. To me, this is similar to Jacob Parrish, kind of, but here it's like more value, because this is too good of a guy that you just like can add to your room. And if he is anything but special teamer, punt returner, then that's great. And if not, you totally get your guy. This was like a 5th round, 6th round talent to me, so get him in a 7. It was a luxury pick, I will get that. And like them going pretty much after just 3 position is one of the things that, if I would look at this draft as a whole, with like the picks I was really wanting to talk about, I would be like, where is your offensive line? Because we will talk about them. Their starting line is pretty good, but their depth, that's a little bit of question. So, on the paper, the grades that are on the cards next to the like prep players, I would be say that this draft overall was slightly worse than some of its parts, because they misaddressed at least one position that I would like them to address. Well, if you can hear that, that's a second cat, demanding attention. It's tough life, It's tough life, but we've chosen this. Okay, now, with that being said, let's talk about Liam Coen before we start the offensive breakdown. So, this is going to be Baker's 3rd offensive coordinator with 3 years. And needless to say that Dave Canales did a tremendous job with him in 2023. And he went to Carolina and he resurrected Bryce Young. Then in 2024, Liam Coen continued that great work and, got his head coaching opportunity with the Jaguars. The way he did it, where it was like, he might go to the Jags, then Buccaneers gave him a better new contract, he's willing to stay, and then Jags fire Trent Baalke, and suddenly Jags, I would say, Jags' head coaching job becomes like much less interesting without Trent Baalke, and Liam Coen just goes back kind of on his word, I would say, and goes towards Jaguars. That, I would say, that's probably the biggest loss that the Buccaneers suspended this offseason, and it's one of those things that are going to happen when you have defensive-minded head coach. Nothing against the Bulls. I think he's one of great, not the best defensive minds in football, but he's great. And like, players do follow him. He's a culture guy. Nothing against him, really nothing. But for a team that I think has really high floor, I feel like with him on the realm, the ceiling is a little bit on the leash, and it's really hard to replenish and refine offensive coordinators in this league, because if they are great, they are going to get poached, and it happened for them for the 2nd season in a row. And I really wonder if at some point they should have not talked about like, Liam, let's stay here as a head coach. Todd, we love you, but like it's such a difficult conversation. We saw it a couple of years back with like Brian Dable and the Buffalo. I'm like, it's hard. How do you approach this? Because as far as Todd Bowles, like, his only crime is that he is defensive-minded head coach, not the best, but like really in that second B tier, and the league just shifts towards offense. With the rules, with pretty much everything. And the key component for every team is developing QB. And that's something that Todd Bowles is not going to do. And if you don't have this guy being your head coach, then you have to find someone that's going to do it from the offensive coordinator perspective. And if he's going to do that, he's going to be taken away from you within like 2 years. Like, it's so much easier to get a head coaching job if you are offensive coordinator rather than defensive one. So it's hard, but it happened to them second times in a row, and I'm like, if Liam Coen was here and Todd Bowles was not, I would be like, well, they perhaps don't have the firmest grip on the division, because I'm not sure how much I can trust Liam Coen as a head coach. But in terms of upside, I would probably think slightly higher about this team that I do right now. So just a thought. Who is going to replace Liam Coen is going to be Josh Grizzard, a guy that was here as a pass game coordinator last year. Previous 6-7 years he spent in Miami, most of it under Mike McDaniel. Yeah, that's a good influence to have. And one of the others where I'm like, I'm not worried about Baker. I might be worried about the running game, because I think Liam Coen really did something that Tampa struggled for years, developed a really nice running game. It helped that Buck Irving was such a nice find, but at the same time, it's that's one worry that I have for this team is can they sustain the quality of run game that they had last year, because that was impeccable. Now, let's talk about this offense, right? So offensive line, in terms of starters, I definitely like, because you have your, okay, let's play it safe, top 25 player in the league in Tristan Wirfs, at worst. Top 5 left tackle in the league at worst. I would say top 3 probably at worst. This guy is insane. And the fact that he was just okay, you have Lugericki to play right tackle. Yeah, I will switch to left tackle. And within 2 years, he is, I would say top 3 left tackle. That dude is just insane. Come on. His pass protection is just impeccable. He allowed 0 sacks last year. 0. I would say he's probably the best pass protecting left tackle in the league. He's just good in terms of run blocking, and if he can improve on this, there is a case for him to be the best one. But this dude is freaking fantastic. He deserves every penny that he's got. I mean, this is such a freaking cornerstone of this franchise. On the other side, Lugericki kind of confirmed his second year emergence as really quality right tackle. Is there an upside for him to be Lane Johnson, Penei Sewell? No, but can he be what he was this 2 years as really, close to 5 to 7 best tackle in right tackle in the league? Yes, absolutely. I think he can sustain this time. I don't think he necessarily is maxed out, but I don't think there's too much room for him to grow. And you don't need him to do you are super, super happy with Lugericki, and he's probably a candidate to get an extension. I think even in this offseason, I'm kind of surprised that it has not been done by now, because he was a second round pick, so this is one last year of his deal. So don't be surprised if in this offseason we see Lugericki sign 4 years, 80 million, sometime, perhaps for then more contract is going to probably inflate. That's why maybe it has not happened so far, but he's worth it. Now, towards interior, this was definitely a question mark entering last year, where you felt kind of the best about the rookie in Graham Barton, who played solid, but definitely compared to expectation, where he was this is one of the similar to Grace Abel in this year's draft, which has me a little bit worried as a Seahawks fan. This was kind of yeah, we know this guy's going to be good, from the get-go. We have no doubt about that. I'm he had touch bit more rocky moments that I would hope for him, but he was still definitely not a problem. And I would say I do expect him to really leap forward in year 2. Next to him, you had Ben Brereton, who was Giants fans was yeah, take Brenton. And he actually played as a solid guard, played pretty much every single snap, and you are happy to have him. As your worst piece on this offensive line, you are absolutely happy. And you can be happy about that because, well, next to him you have Tristan Wirfs, so, you are not super worried. And on the right guard, Cody Mack did have this huge leap forward from year 1 when he was okay, did we overdrafted him? Year two, this was the guy that everybody, hoped to see with his picture, it's like lumberjack from the trees and really this football guy. And in second year, it definitely all came together. He was excellent. And to me, like with him and Graham Barton, like this online has tremendous potential. It has really nice floor, like really, really nice floor. It has rock star in terms of Tristan Wirfs. And that what allows like Ben Brereton to be absolutely cool. And I was actually quite happy that they were able to bring him back on very reasonable contract. It was like 3 years, 21 million, something like that. 3 years, 22. Definitely worth it. Like as your fifth best piece, totally you can live in a world of Ben Brereton. The thing is, I'm worried about the depth of this whole line because I don't have guys listed here, and I'm not sure if I have this for any other team in the league because, in terms of backups, it's Charlie Heck, Michael Jordan, not that Michael Jordan, though maybe, maybe he would do that. Sua Opeta, Jake Majors, Elijah Klein, and Ben Chukwuma. Going by the depth chart on ESPN, I'm like, who do I trust at least a little bit? Nobody. I have no idea who are actually their backup tackle and guard. That, in terms of me actually like trusting that they can protect them. So they need to stay healthy, man. And I would really hope. And this was like one of those parts where Jacob Paris is great, but perhaps, in a third round, let me check who was there, was available after they picked Jacob. Wyatt Milam, sign me up. Like, potential upgrade over Ben Brereton eventually. Why not? Mm-hmm. Who was there? Who did I have? Okay, I was not actually, like, in terms of interior, not many guys were picked in terms of fourth round. Okay, so maybe just Wyatt Milam. There could be a reason for Marcus Mbo. For some guys, like, he cannot play like year one, but in terms of potential, but it was probably early for him in the third round, so I get that. Okay, probably just Wyatt Milam. Perhaps Miles Frazier, who actually went like in fifth round. So in terms of if you really like went for Jacob Parrish and like David Walker, I really applaud. I would be really happy if like Bucs were like, okay, maybe let's sacrifice next year third and accumulate this year 2/5 and go get us some depth for this offensive line, perhaps developmental depth. Let's really go for the guys with athletic traits, but at least get them in the buildings, because as far as we are right now, we don't have pretty much anything there, to back this five, at least in my eyes. So that would be really like a cherry on top. Even if you sacrifice like next year third, I would say this is absolutely worth it. If you could get like Miles Frazier and Wyatt Milam, or like I was tackle that I like late in the third, or like if you could get like fourth for someone like perhaps Jalen Travis. Like I was like up and down, but maybe you don't need tackles where you're like, well, we don't need even development tackles because we are going to pay Gedeke, and in case of injury we are going to approach some veterans. So perhaps just get two interior guys to just compete with Ben Brereton and hope that one of them can overcome him in like a year or two. So I have my doubts about the depth of this offensive line. So they need to stay healthy, but if they do, I mean, top 5 offensive line is not out of the question. Now, towards Baker. And to me, Baker is such a nice story and such a guy that like I was not a huge fan of him coming out of college and like his early years in Cleveland. All those commercials, I was not a huge fan because I felt like it's not Johnny Manziel, but like there's a little bit of it. And like he did not play like a top 10 quarterback when he was at Cleveland. I would say like top 15, some days no. And if I was doing the series back in the day, I would be like absolutely like cheering, and like I put this in quote marks, cheering for them to let him go and really make this decision that a lot of franchises are scared to do when it's like, well, we have a guy, he's, top 15-ish, we have to pay him. That's how a lot of franchises think. And I'm like, you don't. You can let him go, especially in case of Baker. He was, he had the shoulder problem, like really, diminished his last year with the Browns. And you are not certain if he is going to recover to 100%. You are not certain if his throw power, which is one of his best traits, is not going to get impacted by this injury. So letting him walk, I would be like, that's actually good. From a human side of things, I was actually pissed at them because at that point I was not necessarily thinking in terms of analytics, and I was like, this dude effing played for you hurt the entire season. He got you in the playoffs, and this is how you treat him? F you Browns. And what they did after with Deshaun Watson is like 3 times F you Browns. So in a way, I would applaud them back in the day for really making this tough decision, which I think was the right one in the beginning from the business side of things. From the human side of things, it was very, very shitty one. It really reminds me of the situation with Celtics and shoot. It's with Isaiah Thomas with Boston Celtics 7 years ago, but this guy just really on his shoulders took them to the playoffs, really played the team out of their league when they were at that point, and he suffered a huge injury. They didn't pay him prior to that long-term contract that he was worth it, and pretty much ever since he was kind of on this very cheap 1-year deals, and he kind of never got the bag. So it felt very, very similar to what happened to Baker. So from human side of things and from me as a fan, I'm a huge fan of guys that are willing to play hurt and willing to sacrifice for their team. So from that side, I think hated it. So that would not be the actual reason why I would let Baker go, but you understand me. It's similar with Miami and Tua. They decided to pay him. From business side of things, I don't think it was the best decision for the organization. But that was Baker back in the days. Then he kind of went on the tour with Sean McVay. He rediscovered kind of his love to football, and he is kind of this similar to Geno Smith comeback story. Hopefully Sam Darnold and Seahawks. Yeah, let's go. let's hope that we find another guy in this mold. Former high-end pick that really struggled early in his days, but has traits for days and really can show up. And Baker, to me, he absolutely entered the conversation about, is he a top 10 quarterback in the league? And to me, he's kind of on the edge. I can see yes, I can see no. I won't argue any of you guys who think he's 9th or if he's 12th, kind of whatever. It's just cluster of a franchise QB that they are super happy to have, and that is so nice to see. And it might not be his best version yet, because I think there's still a little bit more with Baker, especially in terms of consistency. Now, the question is, what yet another loss of really good offensive coordinator is going to mean for him? Because as much as Josh Grizzard has nice background, it's a third OC in 3 years, and those previous 2, by all means, were damn good. So that's a rough change for Baker, and I think that he is absolutely mature and leader enough to handle this and actually kind of help Josh to really ease into that position. But it's going to be really fascinating to watch. So I'm excited, with him, 4 weapons. Hopefully Chris Godwin's going to be back for the start of the year, in 90% of his capacity next to Emeka. And there is still some untapped potential, because let's speak about the weapons. I feel when you look at this, in terms of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, if you get these rankings, then you are super happy, because to me this is when they are maxed out. I don't feel Chris Godwin has eliteness in him, age-wise, and after injury. I think he was almost playing at the level pre-injury, but with the age, with the injury, I'm not sure he can repay that. I was with him coming back, I was I understand it's a good contract, Was it necessary for this team? I don't think so. Like, they could have spent those resources elsewhere, but again, this is a team that values retaining player, rewarding them, and they do not want to like break that on a guy that, like injured himself or like got injured for the year. So like totally get it. I'm happy for him that he's back. And then Jalen McMillan had a pretty solid season as a rookie, I think, if I'm not totally mistaken. Let me recheck on that one. Yeah, as a rookie, very nice season. There were some games where he was kind of their wide receiver one, which was like very tough ask, but he handled it nice. And now you put Emeka to the spot, and you have weapons for day, because Cade Otton, for some parts of the years, he looked like, well, this might be like next Sam Laporta-ish type of player. Brock Bowers, like one of these really ascending young tight ends that are more than the average guys, those like Cole Kmets of the world, where like you are happy to have him, but it's not necessarily like you have a superstar. And some weeks, and especially late in the year, he cooled down, and it's a question like, what is Cade Otton? Because I think at worst he's really nice player, average tight end in the league, and you're okay with that. Like, he was drafted in, I think, in the third round, and it's also his like final deal of his contract. So like money wise, you might actually prefer him to just play good, so you don't have to pay him that much. But like, obviously you want your players to be as good as they can. So really interesting situation with Cade Otton, because I don't think like with their history of really like rewarding their players, there's a really good chance of him being brought back here. But the financials of that contract could be very like interesting, and for a lot of people that may not follow Cade Otton, if he signs something like close to 15 million a year, I would not be shocked with really good season that I think he's capable of. So that's another weapon that you have. And now we get to Buck Irving, who was just the start. Like, in a year where running backs were having their ascension back to validity, I would say, obviously led by Saquon, but Derek Henry was doing his thing. Josh Jacobs was running the Packers offense on his shoulders. Bijan was Falcons offense for several weeks. Bucky Irving had one of the greatest running back rookie seasons for a guy that was not first round pick. I'm like absolutely confident to say that he was freaking awesome. And like, he was freaking awesome, and he was like, first couple of weeks, he was actually fighting Rashad White for the spot. And with that, like 5.4 yards for a carry for a guy that like, he was there in the goal line. It's not like everything was big rounds. This dude is freaking great. Is freaking great, and I'm super excited what he can be in year 2, as well as a little bit worried, because again, where I would praise Liam Coen a lot, he rejuvenated Bucs run game that for years were really stale. Even with the days of Tom Brady, run offense was the worst part of the Bucs for like last 5 years, and last year it was the strength. So can they keep that? I trust that they have personnel in terms of offensive line and running backs to do so. But it's a ask for Jack Grizzard to continue this. Now, in terms of backups for the weaponry room, or like for like skill players, whatever you want to call them, I think it's a nice in Trey Palmer. It's kind of like, yeah, we hoped for more, but here we are, wide receiver 5. One of the, I would say, better wide receiver 5 to 6. They also have Sterling Shepard. We saw them drafted Tess Johnson, so they are not worried here. Payne Durham, he's a really nice blocking specialist that you can, if you want to run 12 personnel, you can definitely go and do it with Payne Durham and Cade Otton. Though I would say that this team is going to run a hell out of 13 personnel this year, which is like one more thing that could make you worry in terms of running backs and their like usage, or not usage, but their efficiency. But at the same time, the really nice thing about both of these running backs is, in terms of Bucky, he's an elite runner. In terms of Rashad, I would say he's, kind of frustrating running back, but in terms of weapons with their hands, yeah, they were both in like top 10s in catch yards by wide receivers, and they are like, when they have ball in their hands, they are effing dangerous. For Bucky, it comes like from handoff and the pass. For Rashid White, I would say it's much more from the pass. Like, I don't want him getting like too many touches over Bucky this year. So like the split in terms of pure run game, 80-20, 70-30. So, but at the same time, you don't necessarily want to make it a tell that, Rashid White is there, you are going to throw the ball. But Rashid White, for whatever it's worth, he had his best season when like Bucky Irving really, arrived, and he was like, well, dude, this is going to be my room. And Rashid was like, damn, I'm not happy with that, but yeah, it's your room. But he was really good actually last year, so that's really nice. And yeah, in terms of passing game, like I had in one of my Fast 5 prediction on Twitter, if you don't follow me there, you can absolutely do so, GMaty-NFL. One of my Fast 5 bold prediction for this year is Baker for MVP. Like, I think this team can win 11-12 games, and he can have 5,000 yard season with the amount of weapons and the quality that they have. I truly believe that. A lot of things need to go right for that, but if you want to really bet on some long shot bets and perhaps like even enjoy this super narrative on really like the former first overall pick that was mistreated and kind of buried and just rejuvenated himself and potentially like has this in his bag, I wouldn't mind like spending a couple bucks on that, just for the fun of it. With like, there is a real shot for me that Baker, if the right circumstances, can, make an MVP case. In terms of backups, Kyle Trask, if Baker goes down, this season is over. Kyle Trask, neither Michael Pratt is like solution for more than like a game or two when you can, perhaps scheme around some of their deficiency, but this is not, like it's all about Baker. So that's where, I'm even more scared about like who are backups, offensive tackles and guards for this team, because you need to effing protect Baker, and if Tristan Wirfs, Luke Gedicki, Cody Mack goes down, who takes their place? Now towards the defense led by Todd Bowles, and it's like one of the areas that you can really like put up the question of Liam Coen, and really like, shouldn't we try to really establish him as our new head coach over Todd Bowles, is that Todd Bowles led defense. I like their schemes, but I don't think they necessarily overachieved the talent last year, which for a defensive-minded head coach should be absolute normality. Like, I feel like there were games where I'm like, they are getting picked apart to a degree that it should not be kind of possible under Todd Bowles. And the huge thing was injuries. They did not necessarily like adjust it to me. Like, they were still running the same schemes, same things with like less talented personnel, especially without Anton Whitfield on the back end. And it was kind of ugly, especially in those two games against Falcons. But where you have to give Todd Bowles, I think, a lot of credit is the culture. Like, I think if you are a great defensive mind, you can survive a season or two where your defense is just playing to its potential, and it's like actually some weeks it's not really watchable if you are really like a good culture guy. And Todd Bowles, again, from everything I've read about him, I'm not in the building, I don't know him personally, but from outside looking in, a lot of the guys just want to follow him. He's really the guy that brings it out all here all together. So like, do you change that? Stability, coherence, like year after year quality for perhaps higher upside but much higher risk. That's what ultimately this decision comes down to. Like, I think that's a huge decision that, like, in Pittsburgh, for example, with Mike Tomlin, there is not necessarily like a push from an offensive coordinator, because like Joe Canada, he was not supposed to even be an OC, and Arthur Smith, like, no sane guy is offering Arthur Smith a head coaching job in the next 5 years. But from perhaps outside looking in, it's like, I do understand why you keep Mike Tomlin, but at the same time, it's like, but I don't think you can win Super Bowl. In this era, with him still thinking the same, still spending the most on defense. And I wonder if Bucs can win with the balls. The one thing, the Super Bowl, which again, like, they are really nicely positioned to, because this division is still one of the worst in the league, and that gives you really nice benefit that you probably have a good chance to be in last 8. So, there could be things that make this happen, but you understand, I hope. Now, let's dive into this personnel. It's led by Vita Vea. Like, this dude is one of my favorite players just to watch, because I remember him with Tom Brady. He was kind of the face for me of the defense even though he was not the biggest stars back then. It's just so pleasing to watch, this small dude kind of demolishing everything that's next to him, and being this cork in the middle of the defense where you don't want to run through that. And that's kind of what he's been throughout the years now. In last 2 seasons, he's, I would say, nourishing Kalijah Kancey next to him, where his run defense grading does look actually kind of middle of the pack, or not necessarily great, but that's where PFF grades are sometimes misleading, because they don't account for the fact that Vita Vea is one of the most double team guys in the league, and in fact, if you go against double team and you don't lose the snap, you don't allow a yard or 2 of a push, then you are graded 60 or something. So it's even if this is the position that he is playing nose tackle a lot of times, where he's really going against double team, and he has Kalijah Kancey next to him, who's abysmal run defender. So they can really put their worst guard to run block against Kalijah Kancey and be certain that even he can get push on him. So there is the matchups for Vita are really freaking hard, and he still matches with them with absolute grace, and he's superstar in his own making. The fact is that with that, I would say it took away a lot of his stamina, that from a guy that could be really even a dominant pass rusher, and not Chris Jones-esque, but tier 2 guys. I think that's even his upside as a pass rusher. He just doesn't have motor to do that, and I cannot blame him. He is doing so much for this defense, and he's definitely a guy that you cannot lose. You cannot replace Vita Vea in this defense. No, it cannot happen. So immediately if Vita goes down, and I think if he is going for a breather, offenses are let's run the ball, pick this defense apart and punish them for having Vita on the bench. Next to him, Kalijah Kancey, who is a guy that it's I understand why interior pass rush is so hugely sought of, because when it happens, it's hugely impactful play. So I definitely do understand that him and Brand Breezy and this type of players do give really nice notes, but I do have a problem viewing them as something more as at high-end good players, when they are really liabilities in terms of their run defense. And not only because when they are actually out there for those snaps, it's a problem, but for the tools that it takes on Vita to compensate for that. I think he kind of makes Vita worse, or spend more energy that he could otherwise use on, for example, pass rush, because he is a liability in the run defense. So I understand why, you go for guys like Kalijah Kancey and Brand Breezy, and I like Kalijah more than I like Brand Breezy, and I really feel like this could be his year. But in modern NFL, especially when we are coming back to more rushing style offenses, I think these guys are actually part of the reasons why. Because, for a long 5 years, it was let's really drive these guys, put the interior pressure. But if you see this guy, let's take him one-on-one with your guard. If you have Chris Lindstrom, especially, push him 4 yards down the line, and let's run Bijan behind this. And what are you going to do? you don't have to pass. You are the offense. You are dictating the play. So I think Kalish is a good player. He needs to be something more than terrible run defender for me to really acknowledge him as really impactful player for this team. That's in the end net positive, because as of right now, to me, he's kind of neutral, because whatever he does in terms of pass rush, I think gets a lot of the times nullified with how he really cannot defend the run. Now, this is the interior starting to combine them together. Skill set are really nicely combined, and you have really nice interior. I would even argue probably top 10 in the league, and it's obviously, dragged out by the presence of Vita. Now, towards edge, they made investment in Hassan Reddick, and I like it. I really do. I think this is a low risk, high reward type of signing. At worst, this is not going to work. At worst you spend what? 1/20 of your cap on a guy that, could be really nice designated pass rusher, and I think has really nice motivation to do so after last year. But if he doesn't, if he's kind of checked out, or last year was much more about him than it was about Jets, which is usually when there is a problem between Jets and a player, it's usually Jets' problem. So I can expect that Hassan Reddick could have a really nice bounce back season. But even if not, it's kind of okay, because you didn't commit yourself to him for next 3 years. You didn't give him this big contract that he was asking Jets from. So really, this could be marriage made in heaven in terms of Hassan need to prove himself to still be kind of one of the not elite pass rusher, but the next year, and really not a good run defender, but nice super weapon for pass rushing downs. And you are kind of allowed to do that because of emergency and resurgency of Yaya Diaby. I think it was again in his second year, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and he was really freaking awesome last year. I feel like if I were to judge him just by his second season, good starter is not enough. But with young guys, especially on some positions that maybe little bit more flukish, and it's much harder to really ascend to top of your game from year to year, because it's takes time. And you see I very rarely go from a great rookie season rank these guys super highly. You have to have season Jared Verse to even put me in amazing starter category, because those positions are super demanding on your physical attributes, really your understanding the game. And from going from college towards the pro, I would say edge is really hard to. It's not as hard, for example, defensive tackle in my eyes, but it's really hard position to continue to be dominant as you are. And I think Yaya was really a dominant guy in his second year, a guy that if you have Vita and Yaya is your second best piece, and you have kind of Kalish Akensi on a high end, yeah, that's kind of good enough. Then you added Hassan Reddick into this, and this shapes up to be formidable line, not top end talent line. You don't have your Myles Garretts, your Nick Bossas of the world, but this is absolutely workable, and especially when the backups are actually pretty damn good. I think Chris Braswell had low-key very nice season. The same goes for Logan Hall, and I was expecting a lot of nice things from David Walker, which would put you 7 deep of guys that I actually really like. And not to mention that you also have veterans like Greg Gaines, Anthony Nelson, some guys that you can in a pinch put out there. They can give you 100, 200, 300 snaps in some cases. That's good. I think David Walker absence is significant, because Hassan Reddick and Kalish Akensi are not necessarily 3-down players. So losing one guy that to me could have played 400, 500 snaps even in his first year is a significant problem. But at the same time, you are still running with those best 6 out of this group. So it's a good line. It's not a great one. It's definitely a good line. Then in terms of linebackers, well, you still have Lavonte David. So you kind of know that you are going to be good enough. If I play next to Lavonte David, you are still probably good enough. Lucky for them, they have some better options, though. Okay, it's much better options than me. But Anthony Walker, kind of meh, whatever type of signing. That's was about to start, which it's like, really tells you that this LB2 room is not necessarily great. He's injured, so it's a chance for Silvo Dennis to, perhaps emerge as something. He was a 5th round pick 2 years ago. This is his 2nd year, I believe. And like so far, he has not shown much. So yeah, perhaps could you think about picking up some veteran next to Lavonte David, or is it going to be a chance for Silvo to emerge? Because you can get by with having kind of, let's say, even poor linebacker to if you have Lavonte David next to him. So even though, kind of who plays there, it should not be a problem for the Bucs. So again, nice room. Not a special room, but a nice one. And I would say you can definitely say this about the secondary, though this is probably the room I'm most excited about. But like, it's kind of this and defensive line. I think like both of these rooms have a room to go up and really, be a force that opposing team has to deal with. And it starts with Antoine Winfield, who I think I had him in an elite category prior to last year. And last year he was just, like, by his standards, he was bad. And it's like, yeah, he perhaps rushed back from the injury. Could I give him some more slack? I guess, but he still played over 600 snaps. So I'm like, that's a lot for me, like, to just kind of ignore the... Actually, like, some of the games were really bad, where he was like, I even think I had him as like disappointment of the year for the Bucs, where I was like, those are the plays where, even if you are injured or like playing through something, this felt like communications error, or like some of them were like mental mistakes. Some of them was like not necessarily great leadership, and he was like, it felt like it was his fault, his space, and he was like looking around for his guys. It was like either he did not communicate it properly, or this was kind of his fault and he was perhaps blaming anyone, which, I understand this can happen when you are like not playing up to the level you are used to, and you are like kind of pissed at yourself, and you are like taking it out on pretty much anyone. So I don't think he cannot come back to his elite status. I kind of have it in the bank for him, and like if I see him 3-4 games down the road, like looking like an old and great Antoine Winfield, I will, give him his status back. But for what he did last year, I just had to knock him down a little bit. He's still, I would say, easy top 5, top 7 safety in the league, but to me, where he was definitely in the conversation for the best one prior to last year, he kind of fall from grace last season. But you have a lot of great guys next to him. It starts with Jamal Dean, who is your second veteran of this group. And what, like, corner one that you can live with, hopefully, like his ideal spot is obviously like corner two. Like I would compare him to someone like DJ Reed, where it's like, he can be your one, but if he's your two, you have a special room. And, he's kind of at the point of his career where he probably is at his peak, and the only way is kind of down. So I wonder what they will do with him next season. But as of right now, you are absolutely okay to have him here as your starting guy, and really a guy that should be very, very nice floor for the whole group around. And you have a nice group around these guys, because Tyke Smith, in his first year, he was great. Zion McCollum, I think he established himself as a guy that you will have conversation about prolonging his tenure here. But if he asks too much money, you kind of prepare yourself with drafting Benjamin Morrison and with drafting Jacob Perry. So Zion has, I think, starting job as of right now in his grasp as like that number 2 corner outside next to Jamal Dean and Tyke from the slot. But there is huge pressure on him, and that's also where I really like the Benjamin Morrison. It's like, well, the worst case scenario is like Zion McCollum plays really great, you have to pay him, and it's like, well, that's actually great, right? Because then, you can have a conversation about Jamal Dean and like, what do you do with his contract? Perhaps next year or year after that when his contract actually finishes. Or, Sam McCollum doesn't necessarily play great, but you have Benjamin Morrison who can be great. Or perhaps Jacob Parrish outplays both of these guys. So, I think it upgrades your room for right now. It gives you really nice depth and so much flexibility for what you do in the next off season. So, that's part of the reason why I was like super stoked about them picking Benjamin Morrison, because he is the guy that's going to try to push Benjamin Morrison for his number 2 outside spot. Tyke, what the season he had, last year's draft was really, really superb for the Bucs, and that's what good teams are good at. They do draft well, they do develop well, they understand what their needs are. That's what longevity of a head coach allows you to do, because you know what he is looking at in terms of character, in terms of some of his attributes for his player, for his defensive scheme in this case. So it was not a shock that Tyke worked, and it's great for them. Then Christian Isian next to Anton Weirfield. Is he the greatest number 2 safety in the league? No, but for undrafted guy, he's a really nice pickup. Probably the worst part of your secondary, but part that you can absolutely live with. You have 1 year of cheap control, then he's a restricted free agent, so they could get him back for $3 million. I think is kind of the worst type of payment, or they could actually sign him to a long-term deal. What a nice undrafted pickup. And again, that's one of the benefits of having a guy like Anton Whitfield, because you can put a guy next to him that pretty much nobody believed in, and he's going to be good more often than not if he's willing to learn, listen, and just follow the great mentorship of Todd Bowles and Anton Whitfield. So I would praise them for this. Definitely a really nice secondary that has a huge potential. I think Jamal Dean, I think he definitely can stay important starter. To Anton Whitfield, I believe that he can ascend back to eliteness. Tyke, I think, has a year where he could go and become one of the top 5 slot corners in the league. And Christian Isian, I think you have nice safety too. And between Benjamin Morrison and Zion McCollum, I do believe that one of these guys could really emerge as a guy that probably is on Jamal Dean's level. And then suddenly we are talking about top 5 secondary in the league. It's definitely possible. So really excited about this room, and overall, when you look at this defense and the whole team, it's not a surprise that I really have them with firm grasp on the division, because they have 2 major flaws. Their LB2, you can freaking live with that, and their offensive line depth. And even though I'm critical over them for not necessarily bringing this, I'm well, if one of those guys go down, you can still look at the trade deadline. You have assets. You could just sign veterans from the street, and we're you can make this work, because you will be appealing. Nice weather in Tampa, and also most likely playoff contention, division contention, and perhaps Super Bowl contention. So you will be appealing to those guys. Though, I would be happier if you had them in your room as of right now. In terms of backups, again, linebacker room, I have my questions about that. In terms of safety, I'm not worried about this, because I think this room, the secondary, is 7 deep. You can play Tyke at safety if you absolutely need to in case of an injury, or if he is atrocious, which I don't think he's going to be. There could be a case that, I don't know, Josh Hayes, there might be something in him. But I really feel this is the group that goes 7 deep, and I think that's absolutely good enough for the secondary to be at, when you have this flexibility of Tyke if something happens to either Winfield or Isian. And also, I would say safety is probably the position that there will be kind of the most veterans still left on the free agent market, even midpoint of the year, because safety is kind of new running back. Nobody really wants to pay for those guys. Tough world, man. Tough world. Now, where does this leave Tampa Bay in my prediction for their overall record? So it leaves them at 10-7. And how are they going to get there? Well, hard start, not gonna Liam. Yeah, transitioning from Liam Coen and his really nice run designs, it's going to be about Bucky. Like, can he be the guy that he was last year without Liam Coen? Can this team be as good at scheming this up? That's going to be a question. And I think first couple of weeks you are actually heading into some tough places to really run the ball at. Like Texans and their defense, I think it's going to be a huge asset. Eagles and their defense, we don't need to mention that. Seahawks, I think under Mike McDonald in his second year, I'm super excited about the defense. 49ers did everything in this offseason to just fix their run defense. And I think even in Jets and Falcons, like their run defense is not abysmal. So I think we will learn a lot about perhaps what the upside of this team is after even this 6 weeks, because I feel like if they cannot make this run game work, the upside of this team is going to be very limited towards probably like at best division winner, and I guess first round exit. Depends who's going to be the wild card. I actually think they will struggle a little bit without Liam Coen, with Josh Grizzard at Rams, and with the schedule really not being super easy. So 3-3. And then it's going to be on Baker. Hit the road, man. At Lions, at Bills, at Rams. Yeah, they also play at Saints. I think one of those games might be international, perhaps not sure. But like they play 4 games on the road. And, this could be a stretch where Baker is going to have to prove himself once again. This is really where the weather is not going to be necessarily nice. The quarterbacks that he's going to face are going to be really great, and this might be a type of mid-season situation where do we have a question about Bucs winning this division? I think they will start to creep up, but they will be shushed a little bit because I think they are actually going to handle this tough part of schedule, which 3-2 is actually handling the business, because at Lions, at Rams, and at Bills, I would say right now you would not favor them in either one of these games. So I would say 3-2 is a good accomplishment. And then finishing of the year, I have them 4-2, though I really thought about 5-1, and I was like, well, I actually believe that prior to week 18, they might not have anything to play for. So I kind of have this game as, perhaps one day lose, not because they are worse than Panthers at home, but mostly because, the division is in their grasp. Because they have one of the easiest schedule to close the season for a division winner that I've seen in the last couple of years. Like, I don't want to drag those teams under the mud, but Cardinals, I think, are a good team, not a great team. Saints, I think, are one of the worst teams, if not the worst team in the league. Falcons at home, that's going to be Falcons and Panthers are going to decide if you kind of have this division in grasp, and I believe they will be able to. Dolphins, I don't have huge expectations for them. And at this point, I don't see anybody who has. So 4-2, it even might sound like I wouldn't if they need to, if they don't have the division in their handle, I think there is a 6-0 record potential for them to finish this year, because this is incredibly easy schedule for the last part of the season for a team that could be in Super Bowl contention this year and should be, I think, division winner. So interesting. Really, I think it might not look like from a record standpoint. If they are 6-5, they might be even tied for a leading division. There might be even one game behind. If Falcons or Panthers can get their shit together. But don't panic if you are a Bucs fan, because the rest of the year it's pretty manageable. And the storyline, I believe Mike Evans is going to add another 1,000-yard season. He's going to break the record, 11th straight season. And this dude is a Hall of Famer for effing sure. So this was your Bucs. I enjoyed it. If you did too, if you are still here, definitely leave a like, sub for more content down the line, and have a nice day. Bye bye.